But I'm not against calling out larger creators. Again, I think that is a healthy practice, and people should call out larger. I mean, I do that for a living. It's in this instance, I think that the call outs were unwarranted. And not only unwarranted, I think they were misdirected. I think you're using the power of collective outrage against a target that is not trying to oppress you, is my point. Yes, that is the best way to word all this. There you go. Using the power of collective outrage, but not against someone who is actively trying to oppress you. That's it. Can I start with one quick thing? I think that there is, well, I mean, the initial idea behind Twitter, I'm sure, was just to give everybody an insight into what Seth Rogen eats for breakfast. And it was all fun and cuddly and ooh-woo, right? It's like, I had cream cheese on toast today and some delicious eggs. And we're like, whoa, it's like he's texting me personally. This is fun. And then Twitter, I guess, evolved from that into the hellscape that we now know, where everyone just screams at each other, yells at each other, and is much more angrier for having used it, and yet for some reason cannot stop. All of us complain about it, myself included, and yet I will spend hours, waste hours, I should say, just doom scrolling, just being like, that's just like the fucking slot machine. I want to see what the algorithm's gonna feed me now. Is no, nothing's making me happy or mad. I'm just bored. It's still happening though, not turning away. But there is one good thing that Twitter still does, and it does give the commoner, the pleb, the unwashed masses, the ability to yell at the elites, if you will. In this case, the richest human being on the planet is a prolific user of Twitter, and also happens to be someone who's kind of, I guess, insecure in that he has to, like, you know, put people who are much smaller than him on blast, or ratio them with his like edginess, or talk about how Elizabeth Warren is a Karen because she's asking for him to pay his fair share. But here's a good example of that. Someone just basically combo breakered Elon Musk. For those wondering, I will pay over $11 billion in taxes this year. Response: that's 4.5% of your net worth. You paid 3.27 in 2014 and 2018, and no federal taxes at all in 2018. You made 36 billion in one day in 2021. Most U.S. people pay 10 to 37% in federal taxes and up to 13.3% in state taxes. Stop vying for sympathy from people who pay your fair share. Fucking thing of absolute beauty. I thought it was fucking, you know, a beautiful thing. Anyways, this is when Twitter is good. And so, as we're about to talk about Lindsay Ellis, right? There's that thing. Are you really doing the battle that matters? Are you doing the battle that's going to result in getting the thing that you're trying to achieve, right? If you're advocating for leftism, if you're trying to abolish, racial hierarchies, white supremacy, capitalism itself, whatever that be, are your tweets working towards achieving that aim, or are you choosing the wrong moment to do a tweet? Now, Lindsay Ellis is going to be a difficult thing to talk about because there's a couple thoughts that I have. Obviously, I am a fan of Lindsay Ellis's analysis. I have been a big fan of her work for a while. I like her video essays. And I also think that she is in the YouTube 0.01%, people who make, between $20,000 to $30,000 a month, so they're not exactly hurting economically. But the amount of money you make doesn't really change the fact that if you are doing something and it decidedly is making you unhappy or miserable, then why would you continue to pursue it? At the same time, I do have to be, this is going to be like, what, is Lance not just going to condemn or advocate for something? I'm going to have to apply a lot of nuance to the situation, because I think that Lindsay Ellis has been accused previously, and she's admitted to her faults in this. She's done a whole video on cancellation before, where she isn't sensitive to, say, racial oppression or issues surrounding that. Often falls into the trope of, a cis white woman who is, oppressed. Absolutely. We live under a patriarchal society, but then won't be as attuned to other issues. Like, I can bring up the example for if you want to understand that, where Bad Bunny was having a discussion with Q and was trying to imply that black men, because they are men, have it better, or have a higher hierarchy, I guess, in social stratification than white women do, because we live under patriarchy, which of course, both historically, if you want to talk about the wives of slave owners and stuff like that in the American story all the way up to our current condition is, you know, a bit of a strange thing to say. And so that's what is often accused if you hear people talk about, is the person in question sensitive to multiple issues? Is there an intersectional approach? Is it, or is it, you know, this is one type of oppression, this is another, and there's a hierarchy, and we have our hierarchies of oppression, that kind of stuff. Those, I think, have been, and Lindsay has agreed to this as well, credible and criticisms of Lindsay. That is different for the event that caused Lindsay to leave Twitter. If you're not familiar, Lindsay Ellis is a video editor. She started out working with Channel Awesome and luckily escaped Channel Awesome. Channel Awesome was, ironically, not awesome. It was filled with a crew of people that were very exploitative and also made individuals create scenes which they were not comfortable with. Lindsay Ellis in particular had to do, I believe, a fake rape scene or something to that effect. So like leaving Channel Awesome and then becoming your own personal creator, especially becoming a really talented and popular one, that is a really good arc. Something that I'm really, really happy that she has done. And again, she makes really good work. Her videos are awesome. So I, personally, just me, Anecdote Lancy, am sad that she's going to be retiring. But sad because I'm selfish, ultimately. Because that's really, when I thought about it, it's like, but I'm sad because I want to see more work by her because I like her work and her work is good, right? If she is leaving because it causes her more mental anguish than it does to stay as a content creator, then I think that is a healthy thing to do. Like, first off, being a regular content creator on Twitter, or just being any public figure on Twitter, even not being a content creator, just being an account on Twitter, period. If you have 100 followers, or you have 1,000, or you have 10,000, whatever it is, because Twitter is such a volatile space, if you enter any arena or you do anything, you're going to get a whole bunch of people who go after you. The bigger you are, the more people who go after you. Now, are they going after you because it is a righteous cause, as is like the case of this? Like, if, you know, thousands and thousands of people liked and retweeted this one retweet to really show Elon Musk that he should be, in fact, paying billions in taxes. Is that the same as going after someone because they basically said all anime is the same? And then saying that is like a decidedly racist comment to have made, comparing The Last Airbender to another animated series. When I found out that was the reason why Lindsay Ellis initially got so much pushback. Now, I think maybe it's one of those things where it was magnified. You know, she had previously been called out for bad takes on Twitter, so that was one of the aspects that helped it. I wish Twitter would be more diversion friendly. I have schizophrenia and I can't do Twitter or any social media really. I mean, this is one instance where I say that you're better off for it. Like Twitter, again, I complain about Twitter all the time, and I'm also addicted to it. I can admit I'm addicted, so that's the first stage, right? But at the same time, why do I spend time on a platform that makes me less happy as a person?
Hello, interwebs. I hope you're doing well. So I wasn't expecting to make a video tonight at all. I was actually planning on playing some more video games this evening and just kind of enjoying my break. But something happened today. Something got announced that honestly has really affected me in kind of a profound way. And that is Lindsay Ellis, the YouTuber, announced via her Patreon, but also posted on Twitter, that she is officially leaving YouTube for good. And she posted a, honestly, heartbreaking essay about why that felt very vulnerable, very honest, and as I said, just broke my heart. And yet I also feel that her essay reveals something that is at the heart of how we today, when we talk about progressive spaces talking about hard issues,
hey, what up, other boy?
Pushing back against misinformation, transphobia, sexism, racism, homophobia, harm to marginalized communities in spaces like YouTube, Twitter, online spheres, and just in politics in general. I think her essay just reveals a consistent and constant pattern that is heartbreaking. And especially, I'll be honest, this, as a creator myself personally, is just one that I am constantly aware of, constantly thinking about, and constantly trying to make sure I don't feed into myself.
Okay, I'll read a bit of the middle of it. 2021 has been the worst year of my life. I'm traumatized by it. To this day, I still have people scolding me by how I handled it, that should have been handled differently, that I should have controlled my stands as if I had the capability to know what any of these people were even saying to strangers on Twitter while I was shitting blood for weeks on end. The worst thing about this whole year is that I can't even admit this trauma because of all this rhetorical devices people have come up to dismiss it, that centering my own pain is evidence of me not listening. Does it occur to these people that you can listen and disagree with other people's conclusions, that I'm weaponizing my fragile white white womanhood or whatever to point out having thousands upon thousands of people who have never met me say they hate you and say whatever they will to get them the most upvotes is in fact traumatizing. That people I know or I used to know flagrantly lie about me on twitter.com to the tune of thousands of retweets and tens of thousands of likes, and I just have to sit there and take it. My favorite are the people who dismiss any potential harm I might have incurred as justified because I'm a wealthy white woman. I'm not wealthy, while these same people, people's hearts positively bleed for Britney Spears. These people don't see how similar these talking points are to the same boomer bootstrap parenting style that I thought most of us had agreed was abusive, that you need to toughen up, accept your punishment, accept that even if the reaction was outsized, that you did something wrong, because there's more smoke than fire. Grow thicker skin. The same people always crow about believing victims, telling victims of public dog piles that they have to be deserved to claim their trauma, let alone process it because they deserved it. There's no such thing as cancel culture. There's no incentive or reward structure for places like Twitter to call people out. There are no uproots, faves, follows, retweets for hotting a take on whoever's trending. If I reread the 2015 essay, Hot Allostatic Load for the first time in years last night, and I could not stop crying. Even though some of the passages now I can't stop crying. This was written from the perspective of a trans femme and discusses some rhetorical devices used to demonize trans people, women especially, which obviously do not apply to me, but some of it is spot on. One of the most common tools for exclusion is through mobbing, which is rarely talked about because, unlike rape, murder, it's not easy to pin it on a single person or scapegoat it. Mobbing is emotional abuse practiced by a group of people, usually peers, over a period of time, through methods such as gaslighting, rumor mongering, and austroracism. It's most documented in the workplace or academic environments and key points of capitalist tension, but it's thoroughly institutionalized into feminist, queer, and radical spaces as well. Here's why it is horrible. It is usually wrong. It is usually strong power to damage the victim's relationship to society because it can't be written off as an outlier or as some singular monster. It reveals a fundamental truth about people that makes it difficult to trust ever again. People become like aliens, like a pack of animals that can turn on you as soon as some mysterious pheromone shift marks you for death. The insidious nature of emotional abuse. How do you fight ostracism and rumors? They leave no bruises, just starve you. Mobbing typically occurs in places where the victim is trapped by some need or obligation. Work, school, circles of friends. This can be prolonged exposure to damaging extremes. For these reasons, PTSD is almost an inevitable outcome of any protracted mobbing case. To speak about this, to be totally clear, I adore Lindsay Ellis's, or I may have to say adored Lindsay Ellis's work. I think one of the aspects of being a public figure is that you are going to have, especially if you're a public figure doing political videos or political commentary, and even if it is from a pop culture perspective, I mean, it doesn't even need to be political anymore. The discourse has gotten to the point where if you are just someone who's like an unboxer or an apolitical channel who just likes video game reviews, people are going to be like, well, why are you apolitical? That in itself is a political stance. So fuck you very much. Part of being a content producer and being a public figure, both in general and online, is that there's going to be, and the bigger you get, the larger this is going to be, a large amount of people who absolutely despise you, who revile you, and who will say horrible and horrifying things about you. They will actively try to destroy your career, depending on what group they're coming from. Some groups, if they happen to, they will try to gaslight you. They will run psyops on your social media accounts. They will flood your channels with downvotes. They will flag your channels to get them taken down. I say all this from first-hand experience. They will send you and your family death threats. They will send you death threats via email. Luckily, I've never had one arrive at my house. I'm just very thankful for that, you know, knock on wood. But this is all things that happen as a result of being a public figure. So that is different, in my opinion, than people who are attacked and oppressed just by virtue of who they are and how they were born. So people who are in the trans community, for example, and using the quotes that I just read from Lindsay Ellis's essay, I think that is a very different thing than a public figure getting these kind of attacks or these kind of outpouring. And obviously, if you happen to be a public figure who is also a member of those communities, right, it can amplify the whole thing so much worse. There are groups that will go after you specifically because you are trans, right? And I say this all the time as not a virtue signal, more of a, like, you know, attract your privilege thing. When I compare myself to other streamers, like the hate I will get in terms of like either racism or other stuff like that, or like, you know, biphobia or that, is so minimal. so incredibly minimal compared to people who like don't have anywhere near the viewership I do, and just happen to be like black or just happen to be trans or something like that, and they will just get daily people popping in and just saying horrifying things to them, you know, on a regular basis. So like that is something like that I always try to say, because I'm like, this is a very different experience depending on, you know, how people perceive you visually. All that being said, though, well, I don't think it is right to compare like the struggle of say a super celebrity or a super celebrity getting called out. I personally think the thing that everyone was going after Lindsay Ellis for, the comparing two different kinds of anime, that is a clear example of like, are we actually doing something that is going to result in what we are trying to achieve? Very clearly. Like, if I want to end racial oppression, is spending hours online mad at Lindsay Ellis for comparing two different animated cartoons from two different countries as like the pinnacle of racism? If I'm putting her on blast for that, if I'm calling her out for that, if I'm trying to hold power accountable by doing so, am I actually working towards achieving a goal? And, you know, you can hopefully hear my sarcasm here, because that is an incredible amount of energy towards something where you are not actually tearing down any structures of oppression. Now, I am all for calling creators out. I think it is a healthy thing, either if they're getting something factually wrong or their take is so bad that it's damaging to communities as a whole, because, you know, they are influencers at the end of the day. I can't spend all day ripping into Steven Crowder and Tim Pool and, you know, Jordan Peterson without recognizing that the reason I do that is because I think their amplification and their messaging is very harmful and dangerous. And I think it is healthy as a creator to get called out on your shit and hopefully learn from it and grow from it, because guess what? We are human. We are humans too, every single one of us, and we are fallible. Just by definition, human beings are fallible. So all that is completely fine. But going after someone for something that, like, I would say at best is like, oh, well, that was like the wrong take, or that's about as far as I could take like my criticism of a tweet like that. But then to just like to make it a cause, to turn that into a cause when there's like that, if you effectively scare Lindsay Ellis off the internet because of this one take, have you helped work towards ending racial oppression? Was she someone on a regular basis who was consistently advocating for damaging causes or damaging takes, right? Is it the same as calling out J.K. Rowling for becoming a figurehead for like turfery? Because that is genuinely dangerous. Like, she is not making a couple yikesy comments here or there. She is advocating for something that is going to oppress and marginalize people on a very grand scale because of how big her platform is. So yeah, quote tweeting J.K. Rowling and saying something I can understand, right? And the point in all this being is that, was Lindsay Ellis your enemy? Was she ultimately someone who on a regular basis was producing content that was resulting in racial oppression? Like, I think the worst thing you could ever accuse Lindsay Ellis of doing is having kind of like the white woman privilege blinders on for certain takes, and that is a thing, like that is a fair thing to call someone out for. But again, to turn that tweet or whatever that tweet was into a cause that now is driving someone to have to retire is truly sad. It really is, mostly because it is not, in my opinion, using the Twitter and the power of collective outrage for something good, and that is something that has to be called out for. Lindsay Ellis is not power, and the people canceling her were coming in bad faith. We all had criticisms. Well, like, I have to be honest, she's still a massive creator. She's a 1 million plus creator. So in that, I'm not saying you're directly affecting the levers of power. I for a living call out big creators. Steven Crowder is just 5 times her size, and I spend all day calling out Steven Crowder because I think Steven Crowder's messaging is damaging. So that's my point in Lindsay Ellis being like, was her messaging that damaging that it warranted the collective outrage of a lot of people who were most likely on the liberal to left side of the aisle, unless they were like overwhelmingly trolls who were just like trying to jump on board. But to get that mad at one person who ultimately again, my most generous here is that it's like, oh, that was a bad take, I guess, or maybe it was worded properly. Like, I don't even know if she was intending it to be racist. I think she was like, this show I'm comparing to this show. You know, Airbender is like this show. But is that a racist statement in and of itself? And if it is a racist statement, is it a same racist statement in the way people get like legitimate racism happen to them every day, or legitimate transphobia happen to them every day? Like that's why I think the whole thing, if it was something that you or someone participated in, was like a swing and a miss. They are both Americanized cartoon things. Like, it's not even a hot take. It's something that everyone has said about them since. Yeah, like it's unbelievably wild that it got to this point. The Isabel Fall case is almost a textbook example of how online mobbing harms people, and how the people who participated in these mobs never engaged in self-reflection. When some people read the helicopter story and question the trans bona fides of the author in the early 2020, Twitter did what Twitter does and ruins Fall's life. A death by a million cuts. No one single person has to begin to question whether they did anything wrong. Like, this whole thing goes, I guess, to the core of the kind of like one aspect of cancel culture. Because cancel culture means so many different things to so many different people. To right-wingers, cancel culture is when a publisher stops publishing their own books because they've decided they don't want to publish the books that they own the copyright to, and that is 1984 Greg Orwell. Like, right there, that's the worst thing that's ever happened. Or it's Mr. Potato Head suddenly becoming Potato Head as a branding, and that's cancel culture. This is the worst thing that's ever happened. And then to other people, cancel culture can be going after them specifically in a social media setting, which there are times when it is ridiculous, and there are times when it is obviously a case of people going after the wrong thing, right? In the case of, what was his face? Kevin Sorbo. Kevin Sorbo was like, I have been effectively canceled because I was taken off Facebook for posting all this like anti-vax shit. And he's saying this on Fox News. So I don't think Kevin Sorbo has like lost his voice in this respect. And I think the thing with cancel culture that I always try to emphasize is that there's a lot of people who get canceled online all the time just by virtue of existing, you know? And so I am not against calling out larger creators. I know I'm just trying to nuance my way through this whole thing, but I'm not against calling out larger creators. Again, I think that is a healthy practice, and people should call out larger. I mean, I do that for a living. It's in this instance, I think that the call outs were unwarranted. And not only unwarranted, I think they were misdirected. I think you're using the power of collective outrage against a target that is not trying to oppress you, is my point. That is the best way to word all this. There you go. Using the power of collective outrage, but not against someone who is actively trying to oppress you. That's it. All I know is that being in the public eye is a losing game, and I regret all of it. I regret every time I've ever stood up for anyone. It always backfires. I regret every time I pushed back against something unjust. It was always just used to hurt me. I regret every time I stood up for myself. I never did this correctly. I regret every time that I showed any vulnerability. Just more ammunition to be used against the latter. I regret every time I tried to play the game with peers and colleagues. They will drop you a second if you aren't popular on Twitter anymore. It's all hollow and brittle, and if there's one thing I've learned this year is how eminently expendable I am. The good, the progressive, cis, straight, wealthy, white men keep on trucking and coming out top because deep down, the systems they oppress to stand on ultimately exist to benefit them. This is a pretty good summary of the whole thing. The good, progressive, cis, straight, wealthy white men keep on trucking and coming out on top because deep down they know that the systems they profess to stand against ultimately exist to benefit them. And to all the people telling me I need to grow thicker skin or remove myself from the conversation, you're right. I don't have it in me to do the former, so I shall do the latter. I hope your new year is better than this. Now, there is something to be said, and this is about anyone who wants to jump into streaming or online politics. The number one career for YouTubers, for kids apparently, is becoming a YouTuber. That's the number one career prospect. So for everyone who wants to do that and make it big, let me give you all a piece of advice, because this is a very true thing. If you have problems with social anxiety, if you have problems with people calling you names or making fun of you, if you have issues with that, if it in any way impacts your mental health, please be aware that if you do blow up on social media for whatever reason, and sometimes it's not even people who are trying, sometimes people just go viral because someone else was filming them, right? It will take a toll on you that you may not be prepared to handle. And I can say this firsthand. I am someone who does not suffer. I'm like, this is another, this is checking my privilege. I don't suffer from anxiety. I don't suffer from depression. And that's very rare for someone who has a severe ADHD as me. That was one of the things that a psychiatrist said to me. That is, you're a very rare case, Lance, of someone who's so happy and jubilant and doesn't suffer from a lot of the other things that usually are co-factors with ADHD. People who have ADHD frequently also have anxiety and depression. So that is a very, very lucky thing. But nothing can prepare you for what it's like to have 100 strangers hate you, then to have 1,000 strangers, then to have 10,000 strangers, people you've never met, actively hate you and hate you so much they have formed a parasocial relationship with me that is similar to the one for people who like really like my content or really like watching me stream. But in theirs, it's I need to destroy this person. Like I actively hate him so much and I've never met him. And that is a very bizarre and weird feeling, and it's something that like no one can prepare you for. So I can't even imagine what it's like for someone who has anxiety or depression to have to go through something like that. Someone who already and again, I've also got a bunch more privilege. I got a virtue signal about here. Again, very outwardly white. I'm a white person. When I leave the house, I'm white, so I'm not racialized in society in any way. I am very straight passing, so I'm not, treated differently in society. I have a cis woman as a partner, so no one is like, oh, that person could be bisexual. I don't know. I don't suffer from any of that. So there's a lot of things. And again, I can't imagine what it would be like to have all that in addition to everything else I've just mentioned. That's something I gotta say. And I have a cute dog. True Kubi. I do have a cute dog. So anyways, if this is something that affects you, maybe, and it's something that you just passionately have to do anyways, because people got to create, and I get that. I have that drive. Like I could have been a lot of different things, but it most likely would have been something ultimately creative, because like I've just got that need. When I see someone else do something creative, it inspires me to want to do something creative, and then I have to go make something, right? So I understand the artistic drive that people may have, while at the same time not wanting to deal with people telling you to Roblox yourself every single day. Then maybe try something else, like use an avatar, or use a pseudonym, or use a VTube skin, whatever you need to do, because you can turn that off, right? You can walk away from it. It's not like Lance is my real name. It's not like Lance the person, like if I like I've met fans in real life, and obviously that's kind of, it's kind of cute. Someone's asking for a picture with me, but I've never met a hater in real life, and I can't imagine what that might be like to have someone come up to me who I've never met before and it's just like, I want to fucking smash your face in, and be like, but why? I have no idea who you are. A major reason I haven't restarted making content is just the occasional promo video for someone is anxiety. Yeah, and so that's why I'm like I'm telling everybody to how are you not radicalized if you're recognized as white? I think you meant to say racialized, person, man, guy. How are you not radicalized if you're recognized as white? White as a race. I think you're trying to say, how are you not racialized if people recognize you as white? Because my mom's indigenous. So like when I leave the house, no one ever looks at me and says, oh, wow, that person is Métis. Like there are some signs genetically that are unusual that I have to explain. Like the fact that I'm hairless on my chest, the fact that I can't really grow facial hair very well. That's when I'm like, oh yeah, that's because I happen to have like Cree ancestors, and it's not actually typical to have a lot of very hairy people from that. Like that's where we get into that conversation. But I'm white. I like, I am 100% when I leave the house, someone's like, oh yeah, white person, that's going to be that. So that's what I mean. I don't face racial oppression in the same way someone who's outwardly fully indigenous does. Like, and again, I use this example. I've worked on film sets and I had friends who are indigenous and had people who are very outwardly, they're not white passing at all. And yeah, when we would walk to Shoppers Drug Mart, they would be followed around the whole time by security, but not me. Like that's the privilege. That's what, like, people use this term privilege like a yucky term, like, ew, what is this privilege, fuck you cuck soys, are you soying out with your privilege? So maybe we got to use a different word, to express it so people understand that it's just recognizing that you're treated differently in society because of a factor. I'm cis, so like people can talk a lot of shit about me, but like I've never been misgendered, you know, unless someone is intentionally trying to be like, oh yeah, you're a girl, you throw like a girl. But like, it's not like I like, just by virtue of going to the supermarket, I have to worry how people are going to treat me in terms of like, you know, my gender identity or my gender expression. How are they going to perceive me? Like every single day for some people who like, you know, listen to videos by Thought Slime, for example. He's like, you know, for a very long time, it was very hard for him. And how are people going to react if he went out in public and wore makeup, for example, because he doesn't, you know, confine to what we consider to be stereotypical gender binaries. And so, yeah, that is a privilege that I have. That like every single day when I walk outside, people aren't going to misgender me, and it's going to hurt me, and it's going to affect my gender dysphoria. I don't have any of that. I do not have that lived experience. I don't know what that's like, but I can tell you that I think that would be very, very shitty to experience. So that's why I advocate against people who are transphobic, you know, to explain it. Lance equals twinkish. Nah, I'm 6'2". Like, you know, I'm tall. I'm a little too thick for twink status. Do you often get recognized IRL and spotted? No, not at all. It's actually quite nice. I'll talk about myself for a moment. I'm trans. I'm some flavor of gay, and I want to write aggressively queer fiction that will net me unrelenting criticism of queer twats, but nothing better to do but tell me why I'm wrong on the moment I publish any of it. Yeah, I mean, that's why I would recommend using a pseudonym, maybe, because like that's one thing. You know, if you're a VTuber or an avatar streamer, you know, you don't have to worry about being recognized.
But also am kind of living in constant fear of. And I kind of want to talk about it a little bit.
And so this all goes back to my conversation about Lindsay. Well, Lindsay, I think, has been accused, and this is a criticism that anyone should take in, because, you know, people have levied it at me sometimes that, you know, you don't recognize sometimes how much white privilege you have. Accused of, yes, you know, having the wrong take when it comes to marginalized people of color or stuff like that. But I also have to put myself in the shoes of, say, Jessie Gender, who is trans, right? And if she becomes famous and a whole bunch of people randomly start attacking her, they're also going to attack her, in addition to people who just marginalize her in society every single day. Like that's just her life when she leaves the house, right? And the same thing with Lindsay Ellis as a woman. You know, experiences oppression that I do not as a man, because we do live in a patriarchal society. There is a huge amount of double standards, and I know I can already hear the MRAs popping up and getting mad. It's like, well, men get oppressed too. They do, but for different reasons. Okay, so I am not oppressed as a woman. That's what I mean by that sentence. I'm not trying to take away anything from other people's oppression. We're not. This is not, you know, pick and replace. You know, what's that game where you find people? Got who or something? Ugh, I'm slow today. Jesse's also cool as hell. You're a twunk if you're not slim enough to be a twink. Oh, cool. I like twunk. That sounds good. Guess who? Was it Guess Who? Yeah. Okay. I think I was kind of close. Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form, available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback, because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
To our gods, Xander Corvus and Peyton L. Just, we beseech thee to smite down our enemies. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are but your humble court jesters, here to amuse you. To our lords, Trevor R., we give thanks for this spit of land for us to eke out this meager existence. To our knights, Merid, Cheryl Alvarez, Ruby Kelly, Ellie Leslie, Alex P., Brandon, Words Greenwood, Nate, that one guy, Hagbird Celine, Matthew Scarborough, Stellar Vision, Ariane McCarthy, Daniel Sutton, Coulter Smith, Val 9000, Jenna Tall, Quiet 185, Anna Loves Riley, Omni, Riley and Anna, Poodlehawk, The Tim Caucus, Multimondi, Trevor Yanis, Lemmy 101, Anthropophojak, Saren 42, Catherine, Radical Maniac, Ramon Acosta, Nkosin, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Political Puppy, Andreas Chiringuito, Zach Christensen, Josh Mickelson, Todd Buckingham, and Todd Lajeunesse. We raise our flag in a veil, and we salute you, our friends.